Vampire King's daughter rejected the food cooked by all, except the one cooked by human Waitress. The moonlit citadel stood tall over the dark forest, its black stone walls glistening under the cold silver light of the full moon. Every spire, every tower, and every carved archway seemed to whisper secrets to the wind. Inside the palace, the air was thick with a strange electric anticipation. Tonight was no ordinary night. It was Princess Celine's 200th birthday, a night of feasts and celebrations, though the princess herself had never found much joy in such things. The banquet hall was enormous, filled with long tables of polished ebony and chairs carved with the likenesses of ancient kings. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceilings, their countless candles casting dancing shadows on the marble floors. Servants scurried back and forth, carrying platters of food that glowed faintly with magic. The air smelled of roasted meats, sweet spices, and something unnameable, like a memory of centuries past. Princess Celine entered last, as always. Her presence commanded the room even before she spoke. Pale as moonlight and graceful as a shadow, she moved with a quiet strength that made everyone fall silent. Her eyes, deep pools of silver, swept over the gathered courtiers. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips, but her expression remained cold and distant. All eyes turned to the tables where the royal chefs had prepared their most exquisite creations. Every dish was a masterpiece. Every dish was magical. And yet, Selina had tasted them all. Every year she had rejected every single meal at her birthday feast, her verdicts delivered with calm precision. Too sweet, too bitter, too ordinary, she would say, and the courtiers would cringe. Tonight they watched her with bated breath, hoping someone, somehow, would finally meet her impossible standards. The first chef, Lord Mervyn, brought forth a plate of roasted pheasant, glazed with golden honey and decorated with edible silver flowers. He bowed low, his hands shaking. Celine lifted her gaze, cold and sharp. She took a single bite, chewed slowly, and then set the plate down. No, she said softly, the word cutting through the hall like a blade.
A ripple of tension passed through the crowd.
Lord Mervyn's face went pale. Next came Lady Viora, presenting a dessert of spun sugar and moonberries, glowing faintly in the candlelight.
Celine tasted it, nodded slightly, then shook her head. Not this either.
One by one, the chefs presented their dishes. Fish that shimmered like liquid silver, meat smoked over enchanted fire, desserts that seemed to float above their plates.
Celine tasted each, rejecting all with calm, unflinching authority. The courtiers whispered nervously, afraid to breathe too loudly. None dared meet her eyes. And then, quietly, without ceremony, a young human girl appeared. She was a servant, a waitress named Leora, who worked in the palace kitchens. She carried a small wooden tray with a simple dish on it, steaming faintly. She did not bow, nor did she attempt to impress. She looked nervous, but there was an earnestness in her expression that made her presence striking among the carefully polished courtiers. Celine's eyes fell on the dish. It was unlike anything she had seen at the banquet. There was no shimmer, no magic glow, no exotic flair. Just a simple stew, filled with fresh vegetables, tender meat, and herbs that smelled of home. The princess's lips curved in the faintest hint of curiosity. She tasted the food, slowly, savoring the flavors. Something stirred within her. Warmth, long forgotten. A memory of her youth, of times before her family's power had made her immortal and untouchable. She swallowed carefully, savoring not just the taste,
but the care and love that seemed to linger in each bite. "Delicious," she said quietly. The word floated through the hall like a song, and every eye turned toward her in shock. Whispers erupted. Biss. A human? Her praise was given to a human. The courtiers' faces twisted in disbelief and fear. Some whispered of scandal. Bowed. Others wondered what the king would say. Leora's cheeks flushed. She did not expect the princess to speak at all, much less to praise her. She bowed her head, trying to hide her excitement, but her hands trembled. Celine continued to eat, taking another slow bite. She looked directly at Leora. "Tell me your name," she said. Her voice was soft but carried the weight of command. "Leora," the girl replied, barely audible. "You cooked this?" "Yes, Princess," Leora said, her voice trembling. Celine nodded, a small smile ghosting across her face. Burst. She had not smiled for centuries. Not like this. The warmth that the food had sparked now seemed to spread through her chest, a tiny ember in the endless night of her immortal life. But the king, seated at the high table, watched from a distance. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were sharp. He had always been cautious about the princess's interactions with humans. Many had tried and failed to capture her attention, only to be dismissed, or worse. But this was different. The rest of the banquet continued around them, but Celine barely noticed. She had eyes only for Leora, who remained frozen in a mixture of fear and awe. The princess leaned back slightly, her gaze never leaving the human face. There was a tension in the room that no one could ignore, a quiet storm that threatened to shift the balance of power in the palace. After the feast, Celine requested that Leora remain in the hall. The courtiers exchanged nervous glances. It was unheard of for a princess of Celine's stature to speak privately to a servant, much less to favor them. Celine stood and walked toward the young girl, her movements graceful and fluid. "Bay, come closer," she said. Leora obeyed, her heart pounding. "Bay, you have talent," Celine said quietly. "But this is not just skill. There is care in your work. Something rare, Bay. Something I have not felt in centuries." Leora could barely speak. I just wanted to make something good," she stammered. "Good?" Celine repeated softly. "You have done more than good. You have stirred something in me I thought I had lost." Her eyes flickered with emotion, and for a moment she looked almost human, vulnerable, longing, and alive. A heavy silence followed. The courtiers could not hear their words, but they felt the shift in the room. Something had changed. Celine, who had always been untouchable, who had always rejected the world, had chosen to notice a human. And in that choice, she revealed a crack in her immortal armor, a flicker of desire and curiosity that no one could ignore. Leora bowed her head, unsure what to say. The princess's attention was overwhelming, yet it carried no threat, no malice. Bess. Only a quiet, powerful pull. "Stay," Celine said finally, breath. "I will speak with you again. Soon." The girl nodded, and the princess turned away, her expression returning to its usual calm mask. But in the depths of her silver eyes lingered a light, faint but persistent, like the first star at dusk. As Selene walked back to her seat, whispers rose like a tide. The banquet had ended, but the story of the princess and the human girl had just begun. Some courtiers were terrified, fearing the king's wrath. Others were intrigued, sensing the first stirrings of a scandal that could change everything. The king's gaze followed Selene, calculating, cold, and watchful.
He had ruled for centuries and had seen countless alliances, betrayals, and attempts at seduction. Yet something about this human girl unsettled him.
Not her beauty, not her youth, but the ease with which she had touched the princess's heart. Selene, meanwhile, sat alone in her chamber later that night. The moonlight poured through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. She held the memory of Leora's dish in her mind, tasting it again in the quiet of her solitude. She felt a strange, unnameable warmth, and a thought began to form, dangerous, thrilling, and terrifying all at once. She could not stop thinking about the girl. About the courage it took to stand in the hall, carrying only a simple dish, unaware of the power she wielded over Selene. About the innocence that had stirred something long buried beneath centuries of rule, command, and solitude. Base. And somewhere deep inside, Selene wondered if she could allow herself to feel it. The stirrings of trust, curiosity, maybe even friendship, or perhaps something more. Outside, the wind whispered through the towers, carrying the sounds of the forest. The castle was quiet now, but the night was far from over. The princess had noticed the human, and that notice, quiet as it seemed, would not fade easily. Tomorrow the palace would wake to new rumors. The chefs would tremble. The courtiers would whisper. And Selene would return to the banquet hall, seeking the girl who had dared to touch her heart. But what neither Selene nor Leora knew was that their meeting had already set forces in motion. Forces of jealousy, suspicion, and ancient magic that had long lain dormant. Forces that would test not just the princess but the human, and the fragile bridge forming between them. The night stretched on, heavy with possibilities, as the first star appeared over the citadel, like a silent witness to the beginning of a story that would shake the foundations of a kingdom and the heart of a princess. The morning after the banquet, the moonlit citadel was alive with quiet whispers. Courtiers spoke in hushed tones about what had happened the night before. The princess had praised a heel that the word spread like wildfire. Some called it a scandal. Others whispered that it was a sign of something dangerous, something unpredictable stirring in the palace. Princess Selene, however, paid little attention to the rumors. She had retreated to her private chambers, her thoughts entirely consumed by Leora. She remembered the way the human had carried herself, the steady confidence beneath her nervousness, and the simple care in the dish that had captivated Selene's senses. Selene had not felt such intrigue for centuries. And she knew, deep in her heart, that curiosity alone would not be enough. By mid-morning, she had made her decision. She would find Leora, not as a princess commanding a subject, but as one seeking understanding, as one hungry for the spark that had awakened something long dead within her. The kitchens were busy with the clatter of pots, the hiss of fires, and the hum of preparation. Leora moved among the other servants with quiet grace, unaware that the princess would soon appear in her midst. Basket. She carried a basket of fresh herbs, her mind already turning to the dishes she would prepare for the day. A sudden silence fell over the kitchens. The servants froze, sensing the presence of someone unlike any who had come before. Selene stepped into the room, her silver eyes scanning every corner. Her pale skin gleamed in the light from the high windows, and the dark folds of her cloak swayed like liquid shadow. "Leora!" she said, her voice calm but commanding. The young girl froze, her basket of herbs slipping slightly from her hands.
Princess.
Do not fear, Celine interrupted gently, moving closer. I wish to speak with you. The other servants quickly moved away, leaving only the two of them in the kitchen.
The air seemed to thicken, carrying the scent of cooked herbs and stone, and something unnameable, electric, and fragile, like the first spark of fire. Why did you choose to present this dish? Selina asked, her voice soft yet sharp enough to make Leora feel as though every word mattered. Leora swallowed, her hands trembling. Psst. I wanted it to be honest. I wanted it to be good.
Celine studied her, tilting her head slightly. Good, she repeated, a faint smile touching her lips.
You have done more than good. You have created something that awakens feelings I thought I had lost. Tell me, how do you do it?
I just cook with care, Leora admitted quietly. I don't have magic.
I don't have skill like the chefs here. I only put my heart into it. Celine's gaze softened, a rare thing that few had ever seen. Heart, she murmured. The word felt strange, yet familiar, like a memory long buried.
You have a rare gift, Leora.
Not of magic or power, but something stronger. Courage. Honesty. Care. Something human. Leora's heart raced, caught between fear and awe.
I don't know what to say, Princess. Then say nothing, Celine replied.
Simply continue what you do. But know this. I wish to observe. Bow.
You will teach me. The weight of those words was heavy, both frightening and thrilling.
Leora nodded, understanding that her life was about to change in ways she could not yet imagine. Over the next few days, Celine returned to the kitchens in secret. She observed Leora as she chopped, stirred, and plated dishes. The princess asked questions, not as a ruler demanding answers, but as someone genuinely curious. The interaction was strange and exhilarating for both of them. Celine, centuries old and powerful, felt herself drawn into the simplicity and purity of Leora's world. And Leora, mortal and fragile, felt an unexplainable connection to someone untouchable, someone who could command death and life with the strength of her presence. But danger lurked in the shadows. The palace was full of eyes and ears. Courtiers, always watchful, began to notice Celine's absences and whispered among themselves. Some suspected the princess was meeting someone forbidden. Others worried that she might be weakening herself, allowing herself to be drawn to a human in a way that could threaten her power. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon and the citadel's towers were bathed in the silver of moonlight, Celine led Leora to the palace gardens. These gardens were vast, full of night-blooming flowers and twisting paths of stone. The air was fragrant with jasmine and night lilies. It was a secret place, one where the princess often walked to find solitude.
Why do you come here? Leora asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because it is quiet, Celine replied.
And because there is a freedom here that the rest of the citadel does not allow. She gestured to the flowers and paths. Walk with me. Celine's presence was commanding, yet it carried a subtle softness when she was near Leora. For the first time in centuries, she allowed herself to speak freely, to share thoughts she had buried beneath duty and immortality. I have ruled for centuries, Celine said softly, and yet I feel incomplete. I have tasted everything, seen everything, but I have never felt something as real as what I felt with your dish. Breaths, Leora looked at her, eyes wide.
I'm just a cook. I don't have magic or power or anything that could impress a princess.
Psst. Celine's silver eyes met hers, steady and intense.
You have something far rarer.
You have heart. You are honest.
You do not hide behind magic or wealth or status. And that
Touches me in ways I cannot explain. For a moment, the garden was silent except for the faint rustle of leaves in the night breeze. But then, unexpectedly, Celine reached out, gently touching Leora's hand. It was a small gesture, but it carried immense weight. Leora's heart skipped, and she felt warmth she had never expected to feel from someone so distant, so powerful.
You must understand, Celine continued, withdrawing her hand, that what I feel is dangerous.
Best.
To allow myself to care for a human exposes me. It weakens me. It could anger my father.
It could bring consequences to you. But, she paused, her gaze softening. I cannot stop feeling it. Leora nodded, her voice trembling slightly.
I trust you, princess. I want to learn, to help,
If I can.
Celine's expression shifted, a mixture of surprise and admiration.
Few had ever spoken to her with such honesty, without fear or flattery. She felt a flicker of hope, fragile, yes, but real. Days passed, and Celine's interest in Leora grew. The princess began to involve herself in the kitchens more actively, learning the secrets of spices, cooking techniques, and the simple joys of creation.
She laughed softly when Leora teased her about her clumsiness with knives. She smiled when the human praised her attempts to stir a pot evenly.
Yet, as the bond between them deepened, the palace whispered ever louder.
The king had noticed his daughter's absences and her growing fascination with the human girl.
He observed in silence, calculating, wary.
Celine's actions, innocent though they seemed, threatened centuries of tradition and power.
The king's eyes, sharp and unyielding, watched for signs of weakness in his daughter. One night, as the moon rose high and the citadel was bathed in silver light, Celine and Leora were alone in the gardens again. Celine's mood was quiet, reflective.
"There is something I must tell you," Celine said, her voice low. "To care for someone like you,
to allow myself to feel, it comes with risk. There are forces in this palace, and in the world, that would not forgive it. My father, the court, even older magic. You must be prepared. I am not afraid. Not of you, and not of what may come by.
I trust you, princess." Celine's eyes softened, and she felt a strange, dangerous longing, a pull toward something she had long resisted.
Then you are braver than most mortals I have known, she said quietly. And braver than I am in some ways. The night deepened, and the garden seemed to hold its breath. Something moved in the shadows, a presence unseen, silent and observant. It watched the two, recording every word, every glance, every heartbeat. And somewhere in the darkness, forces of jealousy, power, and ancient magic began to stir. Celine and Leora did not notice it yet. They were too absorbed in the fragile trust forming between them, in the stolen moments of connection that had grown rare in Celine's long life. And yet, the first cracks in the citadel's carefully constructed order were forming. A whisper,
A glance, a secret note left by someone jealous of the human's favor. The world outside the garden paths was not forgiving. The court would not remain silent. Selene turned to Leora, her silver eyes gleaming in the moonlight. "Bess, I will not let you go," she said softly. "You have awoken something in me, something I cannot ignore."
Then I will stay, Princess, she replied. As long as you want me.
The garden seemed to lean closer, the night holding its breath as the two figures stood together, two souls from different worlds, drawn toward one another despite danger, fear, and centuries of expectation. But beyond the walls of the palace, in the shadows, the wheels of fate began to turn. Ancient magic, courtly ambition, and the king's watchful eyes were already moving toward a confrontation. Best, Selene and Leora were not yet aware, but their bond, fragile and rare, had set in motion events that would change the palace forever.
The night stretched on, heavy with tension and promise.
The first true spark of connection had been made, and with it came a question neither of them could answer. Could a human truly touch the heart of a vampire princess and survive the consequences? The citadel was quiet in the early hours before dawn, its towers stretching like dark fingers into the silver sky. But the stillness was deceptive. Inside, the currents of power and secrecy flowed like unseen rivers. Princess Selena moved through the halls with purpose, her long cloak brushing the polished floors. The night was hers, yet she felt the weight of unseen eyes. The king's watchful gaze, the whispers of the court, and something older than even the citadel itself. She found Leora in the kitchens, preparing herbs for the day's meals. The young human had grown accustomed to Selene's visits, yet she still startled slightly when the princess appeared.
"Good evening, Princess," Leora said softly.
"I thought you might not come tonight." Selene's silver eyes studied her, reflecting the flickering candlelight. "I have come," she said simply, "but we must speak of what has begun. You have stirred something in me, something dangerous." Leora set down her knife, her hands trembling slightly. I only wanted to help," she whispered.
"I did not mean to." "You do not understand," Selene interrupted, her voice soft yet intense. "I am bound by more than duty, more than my father, more than even these walls."
"There is a curse on me, a legacy of my ancestors. It is old and powerful, older than the citadel itself. It binds my emotions, my heart, my choices." Leora listened intently, fear and fascination mingling in her eyes. "A curse?" she asked. "Yes," Selene said, stepping closer. "It ensures that I cannot feel fully, that I cannot allow myself to care for mortals. If I do, I weaken. My strength, my longevity, all are at risk. And yet, you have awakened feelings in me I cannot deny."
The kitchen seemed smaller, the air thicker. Leora's heartbeat quickened, yet she did not step back.
"Then what do we do?" she asked quietly. Selene's gaze softened, though shadows lingered in her eyes. "Shh. We must be careful. You cannot be exposed to the court. But I cannot allow myself to be fully vulnerable." "Not yet." The two sat in silence for a moment, the faint light of candles casting long shadows. Outside, the citadel slumbered, unaware of the dangerous bond forming within its walls. Days passed, and Selene's fascination with Leora grew.
She began to test the human in small ways, sending her to prepare dishes that challenged her skill, all the while observing with a mixture of curiosity and something deeper, a longing that frightened her.
Leora, though mortal and inexperienced in the ways of the court, met every challenge with courage, creativity, and honesty. Celine found herself admiring her more with each passing day. Thus, yet the palace was never truly quiet. Whispers had begun to stir among the courtiers. The princess spends too much time with the human, some said. She grows weak. The king will not approve. Others, more cunning, saw opportunity.
A human favored by the vampire princess could become a tool, a pawn, a threat to those seeking power.
One night, Celine led Leora to the palace library, a vast room filled with towering shelves of ancient books. Dust floated in the candlelight, and the air smelled of parchment, ink, and magic. Bess. There are secrets here, Selene said, gesturing to the shelves. Secrets of the curse that binds me. If you are to stay close, you must understand it. You must be prepared.
Leora's eyes widened. I don't know if I can.
You can, Selene said firmly. Courage does not come from strength alone. It comes from facing fear. You have shown that already.
I believe you can face this as well.
Bay. Celine guided Leora to a shelf of ancient scrolls and manuscripts. The text spoke of old magic, ancestral vampires, and curses designed to protect power but punish desire. As Leora read, she realized the full danger of their bond. The curse did not simply weaken Celine. It threatened anyone she allowed close to her heart.
I understand, Leora said finally, determination in her voice. I will not run.
Whatever comes, I will face it with you. Selene's heart, long shielded, long dormant, stirred with something she had not felt in centuries, hope and fear. The combination was intoxicating, dangerous, and thrilling, all at once. As they left the library, a shadow moved silently in the hallways. Someone had been watching, listening, waiting for a moment to strike. The king had sent spies, and the court had their eyes on every movement. But there was something older here, something that had felt the stirrings of the princess's emotions and had waited centuries for this moment. The next day, during the palace's midday rituals, Celine found herself in the throne room with her father, the vampire king. His eyes were like polished obsidian, unreadable yet sharp. He studied her closely, noting every expression, every subtle twitch of her fingers, every flicker of emotion in her silver eyes. "Daughter," he said, his voice low and commanding, "I have observed your interactions with the human. Tell me, why do you spend your time with her? What is she to you?" Selene's heart pounded. She had never defied her father, not openly, not in centuries. Yet something within her rebelled, something that demanded honesty. She is remarkable, she said softly. She is courageous, honest, and kind. She has touched something in me I thought was lost. The king's expression did not change, but the air around him seemed to thrum with tension.
You risk everything by allowing yourself to care for her.
The curse is not a suggestion. It is law. You weaken yourself, and anyone close to you suffers. Do you understand? I understand, Celine said, her voice steady.
though her chest tightened.
And yet I cannot turn away. The king studied her, then said nothing more, though his silence carried more weight than words. Celine knew she had crossed a line.
And yet she would not regret it. That night she returned to the gardens, finding Leora waiting among the night-blooming flowers. The air was warm, heavy with the scent of jasmine.
"Did he speak to you?" Leora asked softly.
Yes, Celine said. And I did not lie.
But the risk is greater than either of us imagined. Bet. Leora stepped closer, her eyes bright with courage. Together. Selene felt a surge of emotion, a dangerous pull she could not resist. She reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from Leora's face. "You must understand," she whispered. "To be near me is to invite danger. There are forces beyond the palace, beyond the court, that will not forgive this bond." Breath.
I know, Leora replied, unwavering. I am not afraid.
"Not of you, and not of what may come." The honesty in the human's voice stirred Celine's long-hidden humanity.
She realized that the Leora's courage was rare, almost otherworldly in its purity. And yet, as the night deepened, Selene felt the curse tugging at her heart. Her powers surged, uncontrolled, a warning that the connection she sought was dangerous. Suddenly, a cry echoed from the palace corridors. A courtier had discovered Leora's presence in the restricted gardens. Panic flared in the night air. Selene moved swiftly, instinct and centuries of training guiding her, but in the chaos her powers surged uncontrollably. The magic of her vampire blood flared, the shadows twisting around her like living things. "Leora!" she called, her voice both command and plea. The human froze, fear and trust mingling in her gaze. Selena reached her, placing a protective arm around her, shielding her from the chaos. The shadows receded as quickly as they had risen, leaving both of them breathing heavily, hearts pounding. Celine's silver eyes were wide, a mixture of alarm and awe. She had nearly lost control, nearly endangered the one person she cared for.
You are safe, she said softly, her hand still resting protectively on Leora's shoulder.
But you must understand my world is dangerous, and I cannot promise it will not touch you again.
Leora looked up at her, unafraid. Then I will face it. Whatever comes, princess, I trust you.
Selene felt a warmth she had not known in centuries. It was dangerous, forbidden, and yet it was real. And in that moment, she knew that the bond between them had become something far stronger than curiosity or admiration. It had become a choice she was willing to make, despite the curse, despite the danger, despite the world itself. But the night was not done with them. In the shadows of the palace, ancient magic stirred, jealous courtiers plotted, and the king's gaze remained unyielding. Forces beyond comprehension had been awakened, and the bond between the princess and the human had set events in motion that would test both of them in ways they could not yet imagine. The moon shone high over the citadel, silver and cold, as if marking the beginning of a new chapter, one of danger, desire, and the unbreakable courage of a human girl who had dared to touch the heart of a vampire princess. And somewhere in the depths of the palace, a whisper of old magic promised that the trials were only beginning. The moonlit citadel trembled under the weight of tension. The halls that had once been calm now echoed with whispers, footsteps, and the subtle hum of magic that refused to remain dormant. Princess Selene stood at the top of the grand staircase,
her silver eyes fixed on the horizon where the first hints of dawn brushed the sky with pale light. Beside her, Leora adjusted her shawl nervously, aware of the silent storm gathering around them. "Are you ready?" Celine asked, her voice low, carrying both command and vulnerability. "I am," Leora replied, meeting her gaze steadily. "Whatever comes, I face it with you." The bond between them, once fragile curiosity, had grown into a powerful connection. Yet danger was close.
Courtiers jealous of Leora's favor had conspired against her. Ancient magic awakened by Celine's vulnerability and longing stirred within the walls of the citadel. And the king, silent but watchful, had made his displeasure known through subtle manipulations of the court and tests of Celine's resolve. Shadows twisted unnaturally along the walls, reacting to the princess's inner turmoil. The air was thick with power, each heartbeat echoing like a drum in the cavernous room. A dark figure emerged from the shadows, a courtier, ambitious and resentful, his eyes glinting with greed. He had discovered the bond between Celine and Leora and intended to use it for his gain. "You favor the human," he said, his voice sharp. "Brace. Do you not see the risk? Your people, your throne, all are endangered by this foolish attachment." Celine's cloak swirled around her as she stepped forward. "I see more than risk," she said calmly. "I see courage, honesty, and heart. And I see someone worth protecting." The courtier sneered. "Heart is not enough to survive here. You are a princess, a vampire, bound by power and curse." "Do you truly think a mortal girl can stand beside you?" Leora squared her shoulders, lifting her chin. "I will stand. Whatever comes, not because I am strong, but because I choose to be here, with her." A hush fell over the hall. Celine's silver eyes glimmered with pride and something older, something dangerous, the stirring of emotions long denied. Yet the curse tugged at her heart. Every beat near Leora strained her powers. Every moment of care weakened her strength. She could feel the pull of ancient magic warning her of the danger they faced. The courtier laughed darkly. "We shall see if your courage is enough." With a flick of his hand, shadows erupted from the walls, twisting and writhing like living creatures. The magic was old, hungry, and unpredictable. It surged toward them, threatening to engulf everything in the hall. Selene reacted instantly, summoning her powers. Darkness and light clashed in the room, shadows shrinking and twisting as her strength pushed back the surge of ancient energy. Leora froze, but Selene reached for her hand. "Do not be afraid," she whispered. "We face this together." Together, they stepped forward. Celine's control was tested like never before. Her pulse raced as the curse tugged at her heart, threatening to overwhelm her. But Leora's presence, steadfast, fearless, and trusting, gave her courage. The bond between them became a shield, fragile yet unbreakable. The shadows attacked again, twisting more violently, reacting to Celine's vulnerability. She struggled to maintain control, but Leora did not flinch. Instead, she stepped closer, speaking words of calm, strength, and trust. "I am with you. I trust you. You are not alone." Celine's heart surged. Birth, the warmth, so long absent, burned brighter than the fear. She channeled her energy, not through aggression, but through connection. Her powers, normally cold and precise, flowed with something new: love, trust, and courage. The shadows recoiled, not destroyed, but restrained, subdued by the unexpected force of their unity. The courtier stumbled back, eyes wide with disbelief. "Impossible!" he whispered. Breath. No mortal, no bond could hold against such power. Celine turned to him, silver eyes cold and radiant. "It is not impossible," she said. "Bay, it is love. And it is stronger than fear." The shadows dissolved, leaving the hall still and quiet. The dawn broke through the high windows, casting golden light over the citadel. But the first rays illuminated Celine's face, revealing vulnerability and strength in equal measure. She had faced the curse, the court, and the ancient magic, and emerged with her heart intact. Leora stood beside her, unscathed, her courage shining brighter than the rising sun. The princess reached for her, taking her hands in her own. "You have risked everything to be here," Celine said softly. "You have faced the impossible." Bed.
"And you have not faltered. I stayed because of you," Leora replied.
Bay. "Because I believe in what we have, and because I trust you." Selene's eyes shimmered with emotion. She had long feared intimacy, feared vulnerability, feared the weakness the curse demanded, but now she realized that the true power was not in isolation or strength alone, but in connection, in trust, and in courage shared. The king entered the hall quietly, his presence commanding yet restrained. He had observed everything from the shadows, testing, waiting, calculating, urge. Celine turned to him, holding her head high. "You see, father," she said, her voice steady. "I am strong enough to face the curse. I am strong enough to protect those I care for. And I am strong enough to choose love, even when it is dangerous." The king studied her, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You have chosen wisely," he said. "But remember, power and consequence are eternal." Barrett, you have faced this challenge, but there will be others.
Selene inclined her head. "I understand."
Bends. "And I will face them, not alone." Psst. The king's gaze softened slightly, a rare acknowledgement of her growth.
"Then go."
"Live, learn, and protect what you hold dear, but beware the envy of others." As the king departed, Celine turned to Leora. The citadel was quiet now, peaceful, yet the air still hummed with magic and possibility.
Right. "Do you see?" Selena asked softly. "We have faced the darkness together."
We have survived, and we have changed it. Brr.
Leora smiled, relief and pride shining in her eyes.
Bay, and I will stay with you.
Always. For the first time in centuries, Celine felt truly free.
The curse had not been broken entirely. It lingered, a shadow at the edges of her power. But she had faced it, and she had chosen to protect the human who had touched her heart. Bay. That choice had transformed her not by weakening her, but by making her stronger in a way no spell or power ever could. Together they walked through the gardens, where night-blooming flowers were closing with the approach of morning. Base. The air was fragrant with jasmine and roses, and the first birds began to sing. The world seemed different, softer, more alive. But Celine realized that this was only the beginning. Of trust, of courage, and of love that defied centuries of isolation. Yet the citadel remained a place of shadow and intrigue. Whispers would continue, courtiers would continue to scheme, and magic, old and restless, would never sleep. But Celine had learned that she did not need to face it alone. With Leora at her side, she could confront the darkness, the court, and the curse itself. Together, they were stronger than any force the world could unleash. As the sun rose higher, painting the citadel's towers with gold and warmth, Celine looked at Leora and smiled. "Desperade. We have faced the impossible," she said, "and we survived. But our story is only beginning. There are challenges ahead, yes. But together we can face them all." Leora nodded, her eyes shining.
Then we will. Whatever comes, we face it together.
Bray. For the first time in centuries, the princess allowed herself to hope. The citadel, ancient and powerful, had witnessed the courage of a human and the vulnerability of a princess. And in that courage and trust, something extraordinary had been born. A bond that would endure through shadow and flame, through magic, envy, and time itself. The kingdom would never be the same. Selene would never be the same. And Leora, once a simple human girl, had become the heart that stirred the immortal princess from her long solitude. And somewhere, beyond the walls of the palace, the first true light of morning heralded a new era. Not of fear, not of power alone, but of connection, courage, and the enduring strength of love. Quiet, steadfast, and unbroken. The moonlit citadel had seen many centuries of darkness, of power, of magic, but for the first time it had witnessed the dawn of something different. Something real. Something... And it was beautiful.